Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zoho Zone podcast, where we talk with Zoho partners about their Zoho implementation. I'm Anthony Simpson with Ether Automation, and today on the podcast, I have Devin Gyug from Sample Pop. Devin, thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Andrew, for sure.
Cool. Now before the podcast, we're talking about the blockchain. You're really into blockchain and being able to deliver some really good stuff to the world using blockchain, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested to see what we can do with the blockchain. I know you and I were just talking about how this is the time where we're seeing it become more relevant, and companies are definitely finding some interesting ways to use it. So I think that's just going to keep happening as we were also talking about AI improving.
Right. Cool. Well, if anyone wants to reach out to you to talk about blockchain, aside from the stuff we talked about on this podcast, that's okay to do, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Super. So, can you tell me about yourself and Sample Pop?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2015, we came out with a mobile app that was directed for outside sales reps to see every opportunity they had in their territory. So it was for outside salespeople going specifically in-person meetings, taking a look at how would you say, their clients that they already have versus new ones that they haven't spoken to yet, and really just organizing it. So anyways, we started with that and we had some really good feedback and some interest, but we felt that to take it to the next level, it was going to cost a lot of money. And the companies we were talking to, they would always ask us, is it a CRM? Can you put in a CRM? Or could you do a help desk? So, we just kind of abandoned the app and we went right into those CRM part and the help desk because that was going to make us money the quickest. And since then, we just kept getting more and more into Zoho. So yeah, we've been in the Zoho partner since 2015.
Wow. Okay, good for you. It's a solid 8 years. So is all the work you're doing then related to CRM and help desk, or have you expanded since the early days of the company?
Oh yeah, well we're expanding, but I'm pretty careful on what apps we're taking on in terms of, we've got CRM, we've got help desk, we've got live chat, social where you're posting. We deal with Zoho Books, we deal with Zoho Inventory, but there's other apps from Zoho where we can learn it, but maybe we haven't done it yet. So if we get into something like Zoho Backstage for event planning, we're going to be very careful on how we deal with a client with that because I don't promise anything if I haven't dealt with that app before. So there's definitely some apps out there that is a slower process for us than these core ones that we work with.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. I have a similar kind of thing with Zoho People. Like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you or any client that yeah we do Zoho People use it. I'm kind of familiar with it, but I wouldn't feel comfortable being like an implementation partner for it just yet.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too is that what seems simple, we were talking about this too, what seems simple, you can't do it at a professional level without understanding every single thing about that tool with confidence. Because I mean, if you say something wrong or it doesn't come out the way it should, that could delay or wreck your entire project.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're at the end of a project and hey, where's the blah 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 thing we talked about? Oh, right here. Oh no, but I meant this. Like, yeah, the project goes off.
And I've seen it. I've seen it. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel it because it's happened to me as well.
mhm.
Um, so what is your favorite Zoho implementation you've done?
um, I don't know if there's a favorite one just yet. I could probably go and let you know about maybe a most recent one.
Sure.
Um, just because at the end of the day, they're all pretty similar in terms of how do you go from start to end point. And with these systems, they're pretty much the same when you set them up eventually. But yeah, definitely a most recent one is what I would share with you here.
Okay. What was it? What was the implementation?
The implementation was really just or how I say, overhauling their current Zoho CRM. And that's pretty typical with what we do because I generally, at this point, we don't really work with, how would you say, um, comparing CRMs and then saying you should go with this one. Generally, our clients already have Zoho and they just need to make it work. They convince themselves they've already done the research. They don't want to spend money on a Salesforce. They don't want to go with HubSpot. So they come to us and they say, look, like we started this a year ago or a year and a half. We know it can be better. And can you help us? That's generally how our clients work.
Okay. So in this recent example, they already had Zoho, right? Did they know what they needed when they reached out to you? Did they just know that there was a gap between where they are and where it should be? Like, how did you identify what needed to be implemented here?
Yeah, so that's interesting because you said, did they know there was a gap? So generally, people know that it's supposed to work the way the videos say or the way the articles say, and they think that's not how my system works. So then they come to me and they say, we only know so much, but we are aware that we're not using it to its full capabilities. Can you first work with us, see what you think, and then let us know what we need to do?
Okay.
Um, Now, the other thing too is that typically that's with leads, okay? When I say CRM, generally it's sales, 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 right? Everybody wants that CRM working efficiently with leads and handling every possible opportunity effectively. So that's always how that CRM discussion starts is my leads aren't being handled correctly or my sales team could be doing this better, I think. That's how it always starts.
Got it. So they had, let's say, a mess of a leads module in their CRM. Were they using anything else inside Zoho, like the deals or quotes, or any other systems inside Zoho?
Yeah, so what I found is that most companies that I've seen, they weren't aware of Zoho Forms or even the Zoho CRM form that you can embed into the website. So right away, typical is you get like a WordPress website running the company, and that's what this company was doing, running it from WordPress. The developer that created like the web dev team just put in like I can't remember some of the most popular forms on.
Contact Form 7 or something like that.
Yeah. So then
Yeah.
what is it doing? It's coming in as an email to a manager and then they're sending it out. And so already they're missing that first critical piece of the puzzle of connecting that. And you can't, so it's already, there's where the issue begins is we're getting these leads in. I have to always assign them. I have to email them forward to our team. I don't put them in Zoho because they're coming to me as email. So already right there is a huge improvement is just putting in that form, streamlining how it comes in, assigning it to the right agent, and then keeping track of where it is in your process. So that was the big thing for us is getting them that part fixed up right away.
Okay, got it. So this was the primary bleeding neck issue. Was there things outside of that? They say, hey, once we have this lead thing going on, then we want to do analytics, or then we want to do invoicing out of the system. Like, what was the rest of the gap? What did that look like?
Yeah, number of things. So the first thing is, let me just take one step back. So whenever we get involved in a project, I'm all about the process diagramming first. So when we look at that, you might come in with your highest priority as something, but then once we're going through the diagramming, you identify and we identify together, oh, this is also something we could have been using, or this isn't working at all. So there was no connection between website and Zoho. Then we didn't have the standardization of how to handle every lead that comes in. So when we talk in the Zoho world, we're always talking blueprint, right? Andrew, you know about blueprint, right? So
Yeah.
we always think of it as automating like the leads area, but the way a company or a client usually thinks of it is standardizing how their team works with a lead coming in. So there was no standardizing of do this next, then follow up in 2 days if they don't answer. If they do answer, move them to a meeting. None of that. So that was missing. And then also in that standardization, like is any kind of automation of if the client doesn't pick up the phone, then click this button to send them an email automatically. So there was that missing. And then the other thing that I thought was really interesting that happens all the time, a couple of things. Number one, the deals pipeline in Zoho seems to confuse a lot of clients. They just, and I think it could be because of how Zoho sets those default stages of, I think it's usually like decision maker identified. And generally, what I found is that companies already in the leads area have identified who the decision maker is. And typically, it's the lead themselves, the decision maker, a lot of times. So already they're confused as like, what is this deal pipeline really for? And it's not always that easy to customize. So then when they come to me, we just look at it, we go, okay, like what do you do once you talk to somebody, make a contact? I usually move the lead into the deal because you've associated that they want to work with you now and they're qualified. So that was the other thing. It's like you talk to somebody in the lead, you qualify them. If they're not qualified, move them out of the lead. Don't make them a deal opportunity. If they're qualified, move them in. And then let's get those stages exactly how you do it in your process. And that's the other thing that we cleaned up is now, because what was happening is the deal pipeline did not match their process. So their sales team weren't using that deal pipeline because it made zero sense. And that was a huge, huge improvement for them. And it gave them a better understanding of their incoming revenue for the next quarter or year or whatever they were deciding at that time.
It's interesting. It's really smart, around standardizing as well as, having the deal module match what their actual sales process looks like. I can imagine if you have a more of a transactional model, right? The gut reaction would be to, hey, they're a lead until they're a sale, but then why do we have a deal module at all? We'll just do all that leads module. It gets weird, especially if you're doing follow-ups. Like, I'm following up on a deal. Like, no. That needs to go into the deals module kind of thing.
Yeah, the other thing that's actually an interesting part is I should say that to me, again, it comes down to the client. If the client has a large sales cycle and many stages, then we use the deal module. If they don't, why use it? I mean, if you're going to make a lead to a sale in 2 hours, then you just keep it as a lead and you just decide in the status where you are currently. But yeah, like, again, that's where we clear up some confusion too. Cause I always say, look, like if you're selling e-commerce, right, you're not going to have a lead come in. It's a done deal. It's not a lead. It's gone. It's over. So if you have some type of landing page where that customer literally signs, like fills out the form and gets a download of something and they can send themselves to log in or sign up for an account, we're not going to create a deal process from that. We're just going to keep an eye on it. And if they didn't sign up for your product, then we're going to follow up on it. So there's different, but yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. If you're new to CRMs, then I can see the layers of confusion, right? Between leads and contacts and deals, and then what are these quotes for? Like Zoho out of the box comes with a lot of stuff, and if you have a straightforward business model, like you said, where 3 hours for meeting is when you have a sale, like you don't need most of that. It's a much easier process.
Yeah. Here's something interesting that catches almost every single client in North America. Zoho out of the box calls one module accounts. The first thing I do, and everybody struggles with this because they're like, it's not an account, but is an account. It's just a business. And so right away, I literally change it in front of their eyes to call it companies, that module.
Right.
Just call it companies. And then everything kind of makes sense from there. But yeah, those little things can cause people a lot of problems and headache.
So I think it's hysterical. It's a good thing to do, right? And the reason I'm laughing so hard is we had to change our internal languaging around this because we would use the term account, and our clients would think, oh, like a login, like an account. No. That's a user login. No, so then account is no, it's a company. So we have to do the same thing because yeah, I can see it would drive people crazy. So
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Well, the other thing too is when I was in the real sales world of, doing cold calls and getting clients and account management, an account was somebody that did business with me, not just a record, right? And that's how we treat it here.
Right. Yeah. Which is why if they're a lead, they're now an account, assuming you're going to do business with them, right? So in this project, you've identified two things, right? So there's the integration with the website, so that you're not manually assigning out the leads, and then there's the blueprint on the second, we'll call it the second phase, to bring someone through that lead process to potentially into a deal, kind of thing. Um, how did you actually roll these two things out with them, right? You mentioned that you like to do process diagrams. I'm assuming there was a big process diagram for their blueprint, but how did you roll these two phases out?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because when I think of rollout, to me it sounds as in you do all the work and then you show them. Whereas here, they already know what they're getting because we built it together. I'm just setting up the system to match what we built together, and they already know. So as soon as I roll it out, all they do is go from my screenshots or my demo system that I showed them in to now it's live in their system. But in my process, the clients I work with pretty much have like full training on everything we eventually set up for them, barring a few, weird things from Zoho they don't know about. But overall, they could probably even go into the system and change it now based on how much they know throughout the process of working together to lead out to that rollout.
Interesting. I love hearing about things like this, right? Because we struggle a lot with training, our clients, and I'm always really interested in the fact that you don't have to do a lot of training or let's say an elongated rollout phase. I think is really interesting. So you'll design it with them, and then it's in sandbox, and you kind of build it with them, and so there is no change management problem that you have to deal with.
No. The only thing we've had to maybe work with is if you have maybe a lot of old leads in the system, that can run a lot of headache for you when you switch over to a new process of handling all new leads. So I just explain and I show why certain leads are not going to enter into your newly established blueprint and the reasons why. And usually it's because we don't want to just automatically send someone into a blueprint who we haven't spoken to in a year because their data is all different anyway. So it's like that person doesn't even work there anymore or whatever it is. So generally, if we're going for, we've got that leads module staying clean, we use it for hot leads because that's really what Zoho has made it for, is like hot leads, right? Then typically there's no real issues as the changeover happens beyond just explaining to the sales team. And again, when we get to rollout, I guess the biggest thing is the management team sees it first. They understand it. We always usually have at least one sales agent working with us to like a lead agent, also testing and giving feedback. So at the time of rollout, the whole team uses it correctly because they know, because we know about how they work is the idea there.
Right. Okay. So you have stakeholders, plus the actual users of what you're implementing, building it with you. And then you have like a champion on their team who, like, if someone gets stuck, hey, I don't know why it's doing this, the expert's already there without needing to call you, kind of thing.
Yeah, like I should say to you, so at the start of our process, we get the workshop is what's your objectives? What's your company? How is you currently set up? What are your teams? And what are the personas of the users in the system? And then from there, the whole project comes together because we can, we know that one of the personas is an agent. Okay, well, if this agent has any issues with what we've given them for permission, who should they talk to? Well, either they can talk to me directly or our team, or they can go through the normal channel, speak to the manager. We train the manager really well on Zoho, or we could have an IT team lead there that we also have trained to a very high level for the IT side or the back end of the Zoho system. So we make sure that they can pretty much handle things on their own and only come to us if it's something new that they haven't seen before.
Nice. No, I really like that. Enabling the team makes a lot of sense. Especially if they're going to want to move fast and potentially make changes themselves, right?
Yeah. One thing that you may not have heard about. So we actually do two different things. Just hold on. Let me just tell you what we do for our implementation. So we have two different phases, really, or it's more than two, but basically we start with either if you have a bunch of fields in the system, we list every single field across every single module and every single choice in that field. So I've had projects where we had, I think the biggest was 900 rows of fields and choices, and we go through each one and clean it up. Okay. The reason for that is because you do it once, you really don't have to do it again for 5 years or whatever it is. The other thing is it gives the client a really good understanding of their own system and some of the old stuff that's been in there. And it gives them a chance to say, okay, let's keep it, but going forward, we don't want to use it. So we're not going to lose data on the old records, but let's not include it on the new record. So we do that. And then we also go through a feature for feature settings list, which is, it's 150 plus settings in Zoho. And we show you every single feature and what it does. And the purpose is so that it gives the client a chance to think about it. And usually they go, oh, we could use it for this or that. And I would have never known that because I haven't worked with them for 3 years. I've worked with them for a month or whatever it is, right? So that's what we do as well. So clients going through our process, they're really well informed on their Zoho system by the end of it.
That's really good. It's funny. You're hitting all these points. I'm like, oh man, I know that problem. Like the list of the fields, the options in the field. Right. I had a call very recently with that exact problem. Like there are both required fields on like a deal record, and they're both drop downs and they say virtually the exact same thing. Why are they here? Oh, one for the accounting team, the other one is for the sales team. I'm like, but it's the same thing. Like I feel that, like, you know what? It makes sense to go through all the fields, all the options. What is this for, and can we remove some of these? Because over time, your business is just going to get cluttered.
Yeah, exactly. And I just had a discussion recently with another client where we always want them to think about, okay, what if somebody new came to your system? Would they be able to look at this record page and know what this field means? And if that answer is no, then we need to be more specific on what that field is. Like, just like you said, maybe you've got, amount, sales amount versus total revenue amount. And you might know internally what that means, but that's not very useful if you hire someone. We don't want that new person confused. Also, as you know, with the back-end coding, I always show them the field API name. And I go, if you're a programmer, this is what you're going to see. And as a programmer, you're not going to have access to the conversations generally what we had for hours and hours. You're going to get this field list and you need to make it work. If I was to look at this field list as a programmer, would I know what this means? And if the answer is no, again, we need to be more specific.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've seen a lot of API names that are like, blah, 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 one, and then another one with the same name but has two. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Who knows what these means? I'm not changing them because there's a bunch of code in there, but yeah, extremely frustrating.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely.
Devin, thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. For the people listening at home, if you want to get a hold of Devin, you can go to his website. It's www.samplepop.com. All one word, no hyphens, samplepop.com. Devin, thank you for being here.